Hello there and welcome to the Secrets of Organ Playing podcast. I'm your host, Vidas Pinkevicius. Today's guest is Hans-Ola Ericsson, a world-renowned Swedish organist, pedagogue and composer, currently the head of organ and church music department at McGill University in Canada. And I was very excited to meet with him live in Vilnius, where he taught at Organ Summer Academy, organized by the New Organ Forum, under the leadership of my good friend and organist Balys Vaitkus. And Hans-Ola also performed a remarkable recital at my church in Vilnius University St. John's Church, where he enormously expanded the possibilities of this instrument. So we'll talk about that in our conversation, as well as other areas that interest Hans-Ola the most, that is the modern and avant-garde organ music, Bach music, and special features of organ sound, because he is also a composer where he explores organ sounds, and also the creator of Studio Acusticum project, where he created basically these special organs in a remarkable hall designed to explore special features of organ sound in Piteå, Sweden. So let's go to the show. So, good morning, Hans-Ola. I'm so delighted to have this conversation with you, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
You're very generous.
Not at all. I mean, normally after a concert you leave sort of early the next morning, but today I'm only leaving in the afternoon, so I have plenty of time.
I might remind our listeners the background story of our meeting, of course. We are having this conversation the day after amazing and remarkable recital of Hans-Ola Ericsson in Vilnius, at Vilnius University St. John's Church, where he played a broad array of very seldom played pieces, at least in Lithuania. For example, Bengt Hambreus, right? Messiaen's 1967 cycle from the Mysteries of the Holy Trinity, and then various lesser-known pieces by Carl Nielsen, and then other French-influenced classical style anonymous setting of the Canadian Livre d'Or, basically, right? Organ book that was recently discovered in the library. So basically, and other works, right? And I have to mention that Hans-Ola during this weekend taught Lithuanian, Latvian students, right? How to play Bach, basically, how to play and perform major organ works by Bach. And so we have to talk everything that we experienced during this weekend, and of course I want to basically start this conversation with how amazing, reminding you how amazing your yesterday's use of our instrument, of our Kirnberger 3 temperament, which we have. I'm very 100% positive that after this evening we had yesterday, possibilities of this instrument were expanded enormously because of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, talking about just yesterday's refreshed memories and experience, what do you think about this instrument?
Yeah, I mean, for me, every instrument is a challenge. Mm-hmm. And I've had many experiences with, let's say, the top instruments in the world, and since, let's say, 20 years I also get invited to play the famous instruments, and of course, you know, where everything is the way you expect them to be. But my background is really to play a lot of different kind of instruments. Also, let's say instruments that are eclectical and instruments that you have to tame, because not every instrument plays itself. And certainly in the university church yesterday, the major challenge was the heavy action. I have actually never played a heavier action ever in my life. And it's a long time ago since I really had to invest so much focus and power. But at the same time, you know, if you have to do it with arm weight and with grace, because if you do it with pressure, you cannot move your fingers. So this is the really big challenge. Now this instrument is placed in a fabulous room, and of course the room makes 50% of the instrument.
Always, yes.
And many organ building friends, they have been also saying, you know, in that church it's not so hard to build an instrument because everything sounds good. And this is certainly the case with the university church. It is a stunningly beautiful reverberation. The decay time is sublime, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And but the challenge, as I said, was to be able to play detailed with lots of ornament, like in the French classical repertoire, with the Rameau and with the Livre d'Orgue de Montréal, where also the outer fingers, 5/4, 3/4, have to play a lot of different small ornaments. And yesterday I sent thanks to my former piano teacher up there, that she actually insisted on all those Chopin and Brahms etudes, because without that you are lost.
Exactly. I hope people listening to this conversation around the world, basically 89 countries around the world, they will appreciate the importance of piano technique for the organist, right? Especially when playing heavy action, heavy mechanical action, when you play with coupled manuals, right? Like all three manuals coupled when you need it. And for extended periods of time, of course, if you don't have these good, very, very independent finger technique worked out through extensive, as you say, Chopin works, and even sometimes special exercises like double third scales, then people are very, very confused, and sometimes they panic. I've seen on this instrument too. So you are, of course, you are virtuoso. I cannot deny this, and your pianistic, of course, virtuosity really pays off when you play. But you are not. You're using this instrument, or you were using this instrument not as pianists would do. Of course, you are tremendously experienced organist, and you know how to transfer pianistic technique to the organ, of course, because without that you would basically break everything and no control of the releases and attack.
No, at the same time you are so right, Vidas, because I mean it is not, you cannot put one-to-one the piano technique on the organ, but the refinement of the individual finger that you get in piano practice is important. And I also said in the masterclass when we talked about Bach that, you know, if you decide to play something later than Mendelssohn, you need piano technique, a solid piano technique. Because there's been a lot of talk about the clavichord and the superiority of the clavichord. I agree, I love playing the clavichord, especially Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach and this repertoire. But I think it's a little bit exaggerated. And you can actually not do that one-to-one either, although the clavichord was the Baroque time, their practice instruments, of course, because they didn't practice the organ. Because to be able to play the organ, you needed calcants, you needed someone to pump the organ. And you know that cost money, and no one paid for that, so you had to do your practice otherwise. But today, for the young musician, for the studying musician, I think it's important to have a basis in the romantic piano technique, but also to be informed about the historical keyboards. So harpsichord, of course, which is also another completely different thing, the clavichord, and the fortepiano. Mm-hmm. So the young player today should try to master all of these different keyboard instruments. Should also be able to play on a super light action, or as we had it yesterday, on a really challenging hard action or heavy action.
Do you find, talking about just yesterday's repertoire, I was so tremendously impressed by, for example, piece by Bengt Hambreus, a Swedish composer who just passed away in 2000, I think. And he was basically teaching for a long time in Canada, mm-hmm. where you teach now at McGill, and of course, big inspiration for your promotion of avant-garde new organ works around the world, of course. So I was basically very much deeply moved, not only impressed but moved by your handling of this instrument and the cluster technique. I don't believe anybody played clusters on my organ before. So
and it's about time.
Yes, and I can imagine people listening to this performance downstairs, to this beautiful starting and ending episodes intercepted with the clusters, would think, what is he doing upstairs? Is the organist drunk and banging the barrels and buckets of water? But on the other hand, even non-musicians can appreciate the different colors of sound, the enormous, spectacular combinations of stops, right?
And you see also, when we are talking about contemporary techniques, or actually this piece is an old piece. I mean, it's 50 years old, you know. But this was the golden era of experimental organ music, I would say. You know, I love the music from this time, from the 60s. I think it's so fresh.
It is fresh even today.
And you know, when you have to play, or when you're playing this, you have to be very, very careful. And I really try, even if it's more extreme sounds, to play from the keys, so that I would never risk hurting the instrument, but always playing with the instrument. And I mean, I've been playing similar pieces, and I'm going today to Kappel, to the Abschnittger organ in Kappel, and I'm going to play that piece there also.
Wonderful.
You see. So, but of course this is a precious instrument, yeah. But if you have the right technique, nothing will happen. You know, when I was young, when I was a teenager and I played this music, it could happen, you know, that mechanically things went wrong and I had to call the organ builder.
Yes.
But I always tell my students, you know, keep very, very soft hands, very controlled action, Otherwise, you'll have to call the organ builder, and you will have to pay the bill.
And remember the story about Ligetis volumina, how the organ motor or blower just exploded or went on fire. Remember the story? I'm not sure if I'm telling this correctly.
It's not correct actually, but it's a legend.
It's a legend.
It's a legend.
Good.
And I love legends. So let's say the motor blew up, but of course it didn't. But on electrical actions, of course, if you play too long, too much, the fuses will go. Nothing else happens. Mind you, I have had one experience many years ago in Helsinki. Together with my former teacher Torsten Nilsson, we played a four-hand improvisation, and it actually started to smell a little bit burnt.
Oh.
but it was the fuses that just sparkled. Yeah. Yeah.
So wonderful. Such a fabulous way to expand possibilities of the organ. This even in Kappel, when you say this 17th century organ, right? But you will be playing with 20th century or 21st century techniques, and if it's mechanical, it works very well, right? You can sometimes even experiment with half drawn or just a little bit drawn out stop handles, because then of course you can take advantage of these out of tune for the regular air sounds, just tremendously expanded tonal palette, right?
Yeah, you see, and my experience with audiences all over the world is that, if you present a program where you give them respect, you always have to respect your audiences, and you show them comforting music, or you show them that this is not going to be dangerous for you, and then you play something like this, then most people accept this very much and they love it. But if you would only press on and do unfamiliar sounds, it is hard to take. I only do that for special audiences.
Exactly, like conferences and special conventions, right? Where the specialist audience assemble, and they can appreciate what you do without further explanation or interaction.
Because I'll tell you, Vidas, I have so long, for decades, I have had to defend myself and defend my art and defend what I'm doing. I have stopped doing that because I'm fed up with defending, because it doesn't bring myself and my artistic visions forward. If I have to say I'm sorry or explaining, it's something which comes very unnatural to me, because I don't feel that I develop. But I have been shouted at in churches for playing Messiaen. I've been screamed at for playing, and said that this is a sacrilegious act when I played Ligeti. And that hurts. That hurts very much.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore I do not really accept this anymore. I had a turning point in Switzerland some 12 years ago, where there were only organists, and I was invited to play an extreme program by the organizer. So I said, of course, if this is what you want, some modern classics, but also some extremer pieces. And the day after, there was a conference, and everyone attacked me. And lots of people left.
Mm-hmm.
And the person that was leading this discussion asked some of the guys that attacked me the most if they stayed. throughout the concert. And very many people said, no, we left. And then he said, then you have to shut up.
No right.
Then you have no right
exactly.
to say anything.
You know who has the right to criticize you? The person who is in your shoes, who is doing the work you are doing. For example, another organist who is promoting this kind of music, then of course he can or she can say, Hans-Ola, you are doing something, you're taking things too far. Maybe people don't understand. Here is the way I do it. But these critics, they don't do anything. They just, the best they can hope for is to say, I don't like it, right? Therefore, it must be something wrong with you.
Exactly.
Right?
And
and of course, you as an artist, from the big capital A, you have to shut them out of your artistic, basically, work.
Because you see, one more thing which is important. For me, there's no difference in playing Hambreus or Rameau. I simply play it because it's good music. And I don't speculate with that. I just pick pieces that interest me, and it could be from the very earliest, from Robertsbridge Codex, to pieces that might be written tomorrow. And but if it challenges me, and if it interests me, and if I think that it works together in a program, I spend tremendous amount of time composing my programs to get because if you place pieces in the wrong order,
exactly,
they could actually destroy each other.
Like yesterday, I thought that you spend enormous amount of time thinking about the precise ordering of Rameau, for example, and anonymous tablature book, Olive d'Orgue, and of course Carl Nielsen, and Ben Hambreus and Messiaen, and Bach, Richard Gars for 6 parts, right, from the musical offering. As you say, if you just mix something, if you play in chronological order, right, everybody thinks, all this music first, right?
Yeah.
You play what? You would play Montreal tablature, then would play Quebec. Probably Rameau, and then Bach. That wouldn't work at all for that experience.
I haven't done that for decades. But when composing the programs, I very often try to work with some kind of symmetry. And this is also guiding the listener, so you can follow the thought process.
Exactly.
And especially to have a strong center, which was yesterday the Ricercara sei voci from the musical offering, which is like one of the masterpieces of European culture. This is undoubtedly one of the most amazing compositions ever. And this is what it is, and also for me the rediscovery of Carl Nielsen is perhaps the most interesting thing I have done this summer, because I was invited to play a concert, the closing concert of the Montreal Summer Organ Academy, and my predecessor, Professor John Grew, asked me if I could play Carl Nielsen's Commutio, which is one of his biggest instrumental pieces. It's 25 minutes, and I said I would love to play it, but I haven't played it. I have had 3-4 students playing it, but I haven't played it. So I learned it this summer, and it was an amazing trip, a journey to learn this piece, to spend time with it. And at the same time then I looked at the 29 preludes, pieces that I had looked at when I was a teenager, and I thought that I couldn't understand them, they didn't speak at all to me. because I didn't understand small pieces, you see. But now I think I understand small pieces, and the older I get, the smaller pieces I also play. I play the large pieces, but I also love playing miniatures.
Exactly.
And these pieces by Nielsen, I would say they are distilled masterpieces. Sometimes only 8 bars, but so perfectly composed. And we must not forget that Carl Nielsen, he was probably one of the last really great symphonic composers. I mean, he's really on the level of Sibelius, of Bruckner, of Mahler, of Beethoven, you know. He's up there. And we don't have this kind of organ music. We don't. I respect Vierne, but of course, you know, he wasn't at that level. I respect Vidor, but he wasn't at that level.
How about Tournemire and Alain, of course?
Yeah.
But he lived for too short, right?
Yeah, Tournemire I love. And I think for me Tournemire is the missing link between the French Romantic and Messiaen. I believe that Tournemire will be rediscovered in a broader perspective quite soon. And Alain, I am also a great admirer of Alain's music. We have had a big problem with Alain. When I had completed the recording of the complete works by Messiaen, the record company asked me to also record the complete works by Alain.
Mm-hmm.
And I said no. And I'll tell you why. Because the sources were so doubtful at that time. We only had Marie-Claire Alain's 3 or 4 editions of the music based on the same first print, yeah. And now we have much more information. We have more manuscripts, and we have a fabulous edition by Helga Schauerte. Now this edition has been criticized at length, especially in France. Actually, it wasn't possible to buy it in France even. But we need to have more material in order to make possible choices, not speculative choices. If we have a lot of possibilities to choose, we can still want to make a speculative choice, but then it's within the reach, you see. Because Marie-Claire, she was only, what was she, 11 when he died or something. I mean, I don't believe in the bloodline, you know, and it's ridiculous. But of course she did great work for this music, no doubt about that. But she also sat on information. And therefore I think we need to greet and respect and value the edition by Helga Schauerte.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote to her directly when I got this new edition, and I said to her, "You're a heroine of the music today, a female hero."
Exactly, yeah.
So those two composers, but back to Nielsen, I just want to say it's the highest quality.
It is. I've noticed these 29 preludes that you played, 8 of them yesterday. They were very, very short, but tremendously well thought out. They were like models for bigger compositions too. Maybe Nielsen, you might know better, of course. Maybe Nielsen expanded these ideas in his other works, not only for organ, of course. Maybe he used it as a sketches. Maybe things like really models. and it reminded me of these short preludes for organ by Mikalojus Konstantinas Čiurlionis, our composer, Lithuanian. They are very, very short and also like as preludes, but of course Nielsen is much more expressive, probably leaning towards this darker side of the late Romanticism, right?
Mind you, Čiurlionis also has this, and I think Čiurlionis is more experimental, and there are things with his music that I really admire. I have recorded a few pieces by Čiurlionis, and it was a great experience yesterday to visit the center here in Vilnius, and also to get a little bit of a better grip of his paintings. Next time I come to Lithuania, I will surely go and visit the collection and see the originals, you know.
In Kaunas, yes.
In Kaunas, yeah.
So, Hans-Ola, people listening to this around the world, of course, they are very well aware of your tremendous work you do for the modern music. Not only modern, you were so versatile. Just last night, of course, expert on Bach. You recorded all Bach works, right? Messiaen works. But it's interesting. Do you recall the first incident in your life which led you into your lifelong fascination with the organ? Who inspired you?
Yes, I think I do. The first one I can tell you, because I was a boys soprano with the Stockholm Boys Choir. So I went to choir school, and from the age of 8. And this choir, we also went on tours. And in 1969, when I was 10, we visited Prague, actually. And we were one of the few groups that were allowed in there, because of course we were only a choir, you know. Wouldn't shake up the situation. I remember the organ then. I remember the organ from the concert hall in Prague, that it was a pretty hopeless thing. But then a few years later we did a tour to Holland. And there was one organist, a Dutch organist, that came with us on this tour. His name was Cos Bons. And he played the F minor, the large F minor Fantasia by Mozart.
Mm-hmm.
And I was absolutely blown out of my mind when listening to that piece. Yes, that was the first really ground-shaking experience with the organ instrument.
F minor Fantasia. And just to think about that for a second, it was originally conceived as a flötenur, right?
Yeah.
A piece for the mechanical clock with just a few pipes, basically. Not at all sounding just like we play it today, very dramatically with mixtures and plenum sounds and even reeds. And of course, maybe Mozart had this idea for the larger organ, could have been, because his music is so dramatic here, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Flötenur pieces was of course a way for Mozart to survive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he did these pieces on commission towards the very end of his life, you know, where his financial status was a catastrophe. So I think it's fair to play this music rather dramatic. There is a lovely recording on YouTube on the F minor Fantasia, played by Pierre Cochereau at the old organ in the Notre Dame. I love that sound. It's so out of tune, and it just sounds like a lion's roar. Bah! Yeah, in any case, experiences like this when you are young, when you're a young person, of course, changes your life, you know. I normally say I never had any choice, you know. I was in music already from the age of 7, and then I've just been keep doing it, you know.
It's your mission, right? Basically.
I don't know if it's my mission, but I do know that I could never choose.
Mm-hmm.
But it just felt.
Music chose you.
Perhaps.
That's the only way, right?
Yeah.
For the true artist, you don't choose your medium, not medium. You can choose the medium, but the art, the muse, basically, she, if we believe in music, but this spirit or the idea, basically, art of idea comes from other spheres, right? And you are just a medium, probably, to either to transmit into the sounds, or to write down something on paper, or into words on canvases, whatever.
Whatever it is, how much we want to romanticize it or not, I mean, I still think it's also the fruits of a lot of hard work.
Absolutely.
And it's also a lot of doubts, you know, especially when it comes to composition. You know, I've been on and off in composition my whole life, you know. Sometimes I do a lot, sometimes I do nothing, and then I don't know where my music is going. A few days ago you asked me what I'm doing now in composition, and right now I am in a collecting mood. I collect material, I collect sounds that I like for the organ, because I will write a larger organ cycle. That's the next thing. And I will also write a lot of choir music. I will write a choir book that I have decided this summer, and then we will see.
So it's wonderful. You're also very, very impressive composer. I first heard you and your pieces performed at Gothenburg International Organ Academy in 2000. And together with Osha, we went there as students, just simply to observe and to participate. And I remember this remarkable cycle called Four Beasts Amen, right? It has such a novel idea of including different sounds of different Arp-Schnitger organs on tape and reproducing it on live loudspeakers, stereo or quadraphonic loudspeakers around the world, or 5, right? And you were also at the same time playing live on this newly inaugurated, basically, copy, or not copy, but basically North German style instrument in Orgrita New Church. So can you remember this experience when you wrote it?
Oh yeah, very much. It was a great experience, but it started that Hans Davidsson, the project leader of the Go Art at that time, he asked me if I could write an organ mass for the inauguration. And then I hadn't composed for a while, but then the pull got too strong, you know, because this was something that just felt right, and I managed to create time in my calendar to really spend a good year working on that, going to the different Schnitger organs that was an inspiration for the project in Gothenburg. So that's the Schnitger organs in Hamburg, Jacobi. It is Stade, Lydingvort, and Kappel. Those were the sort of model organs that they analyzed, And I analyzed them in my way, so I sort of dissected them from sound, you know. I recorded the bellows, I recorded only the action, I recorded a lot of different sounds. And then I started to put it together into an organ mass, actually, with a preludium, a Kyrie, a Gloria, a Sanctus Agnus Dei, and also an interlude, which is instead of a sermon, and a piece for the communion, and a postlude. So, and I have played this a lot. I think I played this piece all over the place. I'm sure 50 times, all over the world, and this has been very inspiring. So I played it on so many different pitches, you know, like in Alkmaar, or in Stade, or in Norden. I forgot Norden. Norden is, of course, the fifth and the perhaps most astonishing instrument.
Oh yeah. So, what were the range of people's reaction to this cycle around the world?
I think that they were very interested. I mean, I use a lot of existing material because I asked Hans Davidsson one question. So I said, now when you have worked so hard for such a long time to create this instrument, if you were to distill this down into one piece that you have been dreaming about playing, what would that be? And then he said, Matthias Weikmann, the last variation from Existas Heilungs Kommen her.
Of course.
So then I used that music for the prelude in my organ mass. I used that as material. I had very, very good reactions, very, very friendly reactions. You know, I dedicated the whole thing to my friend Harald Vogel, and he has also helped me promote the piece, and he's been an enormous support throughout all this time. You know, I know him since I was 14. When I was 14, I registered for him in Lövstabruk in Sweden, and I think he's one of the most sympathetic persons in the organ world, and I respect him tremendously. He's such an artistic person.
He is probably, Harald Vogel will be remembered for hundreds of years in the future for his passion, love, and inspiration from the early instruments, and the work he did in Ostfriesland, and
all over the world
through his output, of course.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you met him too.
Yeah, I'm hoping to meet him in a few days in Kappel. I would be surprised if I will not meet him there when I play there on Friday, I think.
So wonderful. And of course I know that in addition to these strange and remarkable sounds of 17th century organs, you also have a keen interest into the sound itself. Can you give us a little bit insight into your Studio Acusticum project? What it's about?
That was a big project. It was inaugurated in 2012. Studio Acusticum is a concert hall located in connection to the School of Music in Piteå. Piteå is a relatively small town at the coast of northern Sweden, some 900 kilometers north of Stockholm. And there we had this fabulous concert hall built, and the architect of the concert hall contacted me and said, Hans-Ola, don't you think that in the new concert hall we should plan a space for an organ? And I said, naturally we should plan a space for an organ. And then the architect asked me, how much space does an organ take? So then I made some drawings, I spoke to some organ builders, and I said to him, this is the space we will need. So when he drew the concert hall, it was already planned for an ideal space for an organ. And then how it was, we got a donation from one of the biggest donors of cultural or university work in Sweden, the Kempe Foundation, and I got 10 million from them so we could start the project, and the university approved. But the total sum would have been 35 million crowns, which is a lot of money. So it's like 3.5 million euros. And then we started, and I had a project group with the named person. Harald Vogel was in the group, Kevin Boyer, University Organist in Glasgow, Hampus Lindvall, a young Swedish organist who is titular organist in Saint-Esprit Church in Paris, and a computer genius, Peter Bengtsson, from Sweden. And then we opened this so anyone could give an offer. We had specified what we wanted approximately. And then after long discussions, the German organ builder Gerhard Wöhl was chosen to build the organ. And then the actual work started, I mean, he gave a tender, so an offer. But then we, as the expert group, we wanted perhaps the organ to be a little bit different. And then work started, and then we agreed on, let's say, a master plan with. It was going to be a rather huge organ with many faces, because Gerhard Wöhl is one of the few organ builders that has the capacity to build in Baroque style, in Romantic style, German and French, and also to think freely and openly within certain frames. Mm-hmm. So therefore the organ became rather large. So it has a Hauptwerk, an Oberwerk, which can also be used as a positive with different swell functions. It has a very large swell. It has a solo. It has a very large pedal, and also quite a number of percussion instruments. Wind, we can manipulate the wind supply. And other things were thought about. But so when we inaugurated this in 2012, we were sort of, let's say, 2/3 through with the project. But the last third will hopefully happen sometime in the future. Now the university or the School of Music in Piteå is in a very, very severe financial crisis. And some of your listeners might even have heard that there has been a rumor that the Studio Acusticum organ is up for sale. And this is true, but I presume and I predict that the organ will stay in the hall and that there will be just a broader ownership. Mm-hmm. And I welcome this, because then perhaps we can go on with the next step of the project, which would be to build this overtone harmonics division with never heard before sounds. Also to build the organ as a studio in real time, interactive and active. And the third part would be to work with lighting design in real time. So these things are planned for. I mean, I've done plans for all this. It's basically just to launch, but then we need another big money, 10 million crowns or 1 million euros. And so we will see if that happens. The worst case scenario is obviously that the organ will be sold and transported somewhere else. But that would be a cultural scandal of such proportions that a university would break their neck trying to do something like this. They would lose all trustworthiness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The instrument is too important to be relocated somewhere, right? And probably they understand that, of course.
Yeah, I think so. It's more, of course, this instrument is iconic already.
Okay. Yes.
So if you say we're going to sell the icon, and of course this has been all over the press, all around the world already. So I think that they knew what they did when they said we are going to sell the organ. So I mean, they are pretty smart people. Yeah.
Excellent. So when you go back home to McGill, what awaits you there? Do you have a line of students waiting for you now this next year, right?
Yes,
Hungry students for your
I
teaching?
I do actually, and I'm very happy. I have a fantastic organ class. I have 14 students this year, and they are everything from bachelor, licentiate to doctoral students. So, and we work very wonderful together. They're mostly from Canada and US, some Europeans also. And I have been working with some of my students all throughout the summer over Skype, or they have sent me recordings and I have commented, because I have some students that are taking part in competitions. So of course, you have to support them all through the summer.
Excellent. So your work will continue not only when you're physically there in classroom or studio. You can travel the world, right, and still be able to teach sometimes.
Yes and no, Vidas. In North America, it is a little bit different than in Europe. When I was working in Europe, I felt that I had the freedom to go anywhere where I wanted, when I wanted, because I could always give back my lessons. In North America, the students pay for their individual lessons, and this is good. And you are supposed actually to be at the university during semester time. So that is from beginning of September into December, and January into to the very end of April, but exams can then happen through May also. And first of all, I felt that this was hard, not to be able to accept a gig somewhere, And this semester, I'm actually going to be in the jury for the competition in Erfurt, Weimar, Altershausen, the Bach list competition. So I will be away for 2 weeks. And but my colleagues at McGill have said, we'll cover up for you, no problem. And I will give lessons before, a little bit extra, and also afterwards. So I think that should be fine. But you are actually supposed to be in town during the semesters. And it's a lot of work, it's hard work. And they have all the rights to demand that from you also.
Exactly. And of course you give so much to the organ world, not only in person when you teach, but also when you play in other places and teach in academies around the world. And of course, when you compose, of course, you give yourself your ideas. So I thank you, Hans-Ola, for your tremendous generosity. You are doing work that matters for so many people, and I wish you many, many years ahead of you. Fruitful years, brave years, and don't pay attention to the critics.
Okay, thank you, Vidas. It was nice talking to you. Thank you for very good questions.
Excellent.
If you liked this conversation, I encourage you to visit my blog Secrets of Organ Playing at organduo.lt, where you will find lots of insights, practical advice and training for every area of organ playing. You can subscribe to this blog for free to get your daily dose of inspiration and to be the first to know when any of my future podcasts roll out. I hope to help you reach your dreams in organ playing. I'm Vidas Pinkevicius. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you online really soon.